Hey, Aubrey, do you think that IELTS speaking is like real life conversation?
Ooh, that is an interesting question because I would say 90% of the students who do like a mock speaking test with me,
Mhm.
especially before they get much feedback, it's nothing like normal conversation. But it actually should be, I feel like.
Yeah, of course, there are a lot of ways that the IELTS speaking test is not like a real conversation, right? I mean, you don't have, in real life, a person isn't handing you a topic card and being like, talk about this for 2 minutes. Like, it's manufactured for sure. But
Right.
here's the
There's no
thing,
back and
guys.
forth.
Yeah, exactly. You can't ask the examiner questions,
Mm-mm.
not like a real conversation. But here's the thing, guys. Today, we're going to tell you very real ways that IELTS speaking should be like a real conversation if you are going to get the highest scores. And it all boils down to connection. Right. So, in real life, what are some ways that we connect with other people during conversation?
Right? We are avoiding a monotone. We're using
Yeah.
interesting intonation. We're adding detail, interesting vocabulary, slang,
Yeah.
idioms. There are a lot of things we do in a conversation to be interesting that you also have to do on the IELTS exam. So the better you are at real conversation, the higher your speaking score will be.
Exactly. So, as I hope you guys know, I was an IELTS examiner for 14 years. So, we have the inside look here at what the scoring system means. What is this about? How do we raise our scores? And that's what we're going to tell you guys today. One tip for each scoring category. So, let's get into it. Let's start with fluency and coherence. Now, what's a way we connect in real life conversation that we also have to do on IELTS for this score?
Yes, we often recommend telling a story. And when you tell a story, you need to develop it with ideas, with specific details and examples. The more general you are in regular conversation when you're telling a story, the more boring it is. The more
Exactly.
detailed you get, the more engaging it is, the more interesting it is.
Exactly. In real life, we connect to other people by being a little bit vulnerable, by sharing personal examples, details, stories, all of this stuff. And this is how we develop our answers for the highest fluency scores on IELTS. So for example, easy part one question, right? What do you do in your free time? Very common. Um, an IELTS student candidate might approach this with like a laundry list of items, right? Like,
Mm.
in my free time, I like to go to the gym and play with my dogs. And that's so boring. What if you said that in real life? The other person would be like, "Oh, that's
Awesome.
that's great. That I'm gonna go talk to this guy over here." And like,
Right. I just saw someone I need to talk to.
oh, look at the time. I gotta go. So, right, doesn't work either way. So here's an example of what you could say on IELTS to connect in the speaking part one answer. You could be like, oh gosh, what don't I do? Just kidding. I don't have that much free time. Actually, I've been really into exploring my neighborhood lately because I just moved. So I take my dogs on long, meandering walks to see what's around. Just yesterday, I found the coolest little used bookstore that I can't wait to hunt through. Okay, so there's so many little details in there that the examiner will be interested in that if this were a real life conversation, he or she would ask you follow-up questions, you
Yes,
know?
I'm interested, right? That person I want to talk to, they're giving me
Yes.
these great ideas. So much interesting stuff here. I'm sucked into that conversation, just like the examiner will be in your answers.
Right, exactly. So, like, that's the point today, guys. Again, we're going to tell you all three things and stay until the end because we'll also relate this to grammar. But how can you be someone that the examiner would want to connect with in the real world, right? And that is the first way. All right, so you already hinted at this vocabulary thing, but how does our high IELTS vocabulary score relate to real world conversation?
Yeah, to get the higher, IELTS vocabulary scores, you need a range of vocabulary. You've got to be using slang and idioms as well as topic specific vocabulary. And the exact same thing is true for your conversations in real life.
Hmm.
If you're using very common, uninteresting, band six vocabulary, your conversations won't be very interesting either.
And I mean, in real life, there isn't just one way we talk, right? If we're hanging out with friends, we use slang, right? That is speaking part one. Those are those personal questions. If we are talking to someone we don't know very well or having a professional conversation, we use higher level academic vocabulary. That is speaking part three. So that is the range that does reflect real life that we have to show on the exam.
Exactly. Your answers should match the question, right? It's much more natural and it's also going to pull the right kind of vocabulary out of you. So, for example, on part two as well, if you're asked to describe a party you attended, maybe you want to be throwing in some slang and some idioms, like talking about a party. That's a pretty casual conversation you would have. So, you might say, without a shadow of a doubt, the most amazing party I've ever attended was my friend's boodle fight. There were gobs of super scrumptious food, and it was so fun and messy eating with our fingers. I loved it.
What's a boodle fight? I've never heard of this.
It's a Vietnamese tradition where they put all of the food on tables on banana leaves, and then you eat with your
Oh.
fingers, and the fight part of it is it's all just kind of a free for all, so you're trying to eat, before the person next to you steals all your food. I went to one my friend threw not Vietnamese, Filipino. He's from the Philippines, and
Oh,
they
okay.
do it all every year as a family, but this was the biggest one he said he had ever done. If you follow us on social media, you
That's
saw some
awesome.
pictures I posted, guys. If not, go back and look at him on Instagram. Oh, it was so fun. I loved it, and delicious. Such yummy food.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Yay, I learned something today. I wanna
Yes,
go to a boodle fight. All right.
you would love it.
So we have 2 more quick tips here, guys. First, let's talk about grammar. So, um, in real life, right? Connection, not perfection. You don't have to have perfect grammar, but the important grammar that affects communication, that's the grammar that we need to get correct. And that's also true for IELTS. If you have some mistakes, grammar mistakes, but it doesn't affect your communication, it doesn't hurt your score as badly. Right. And that reflects real life. Right. So, what is one thing that we have to get right for someone else to understand what we're talking about and that really affects our IELTS grammar score?
Yes, the biggest thing here is that you cannot choose the verb tense you are going to use. There is one correct verb tense depending on what you are saying, and the meaning of your sentences will be totally lost if you're trying to squeeze in future perfect when you're talking present or maybe past or something, and then it just becomes confusing and what you're saying isn't clear.
Yeah, or maybe you're an upper intermediate learner and the past simple is still like this fossilized mistake for you. Like you still forget to use past simple when you're talking about the past. That happens a lot, right?
Mm.
It like higher level, very fluent sounding students are still making mistakes with past simple. So if that is one of your errors, you need to focus on fixing that and not just for your IELTS speaking score, but also for real life communication.
Yes. Okay, let's dive into the pronunciation score last here. The biggest thing when you're having a conversation with someone in real life, the last thing you want to do is use a monotone. You want varied intonation to hold interest, and the exact same thing is true for your IELTS pronunciation score.
Exactly, exactly. Um, I know that like when I go into a class, right? Like I'm substitute teaching, I go into a class, never met these 20 kids before. I try to connect with all of them as best as I can, and intonation is a big part of that. The energy that you put into your voice, the feelings and emotions that are reflected in your intonation, this is so vital to connecting to other people, to having them want to listen to you. And that is why it is such a huge part of your pronunciation score on IELTS. So, we're not going to sound excited in every answer. That's not the point. We want to show our real feelings and emotions through our intonation. And we can only do that if we're talking about personal ideas, opinions, experiences, like we do for our fluency and coherence score. So you see, it all connects, guys. So the main
Yes.
takeaway today is you want to try to connect through your communication on IELTS speaking, just like you would in the real world, because that helps all four of your scores.
Yes, exactly. Make your IELTS speaking answers as interesting as you would make an in person conversation, and your speaking scores will go up.
Exactly. Awesome. Remember, guys, we have our lifetime access course available right now. Check it out, allearsenglish.com/KEYS. Guaranteed to increase your IELTS score. All right, Rad. Aubrey, I'll see ya on Friday.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.